2 years ago I took the hit that saved her life, and woke up unable to walk. While I learned to live with pain, she learned to live with money, in another man's mansion. Tonight, the woman who left me paralyzed is watching me walk again, not as her husband, but as the man she'll never have back. Subscribe, like, comment and watching till the ending to share this interesting story to family and friends. The morning sun crawled through the thin curtains of their one-bedroom apartment, landing on David Okoro's grease-stained hands as he tightened a bolt on a broken generator. His wife, Amara, stood by the door, arms folded, eyes scanning him like a stranger. "David," she sighed, "this isn't what I imagined for my life. We've been married 3 years and I'm still patching the same gown for church." David looked up, wiping sweat from his brow. "I know, Amara. Things are hard now, but once I get my certification and open my own workshop." She cut him off. "You've been saying that since forever. My friends' husbands are buying cars for their wives. You can't even fix this generator without complaining." Her tone stung, but David smiled faintly, forcing calm. "Amara, I'm not complaining. I'm trying." The silence between them was thick, heavier than the smell of engine oil in the air. Later that evening they sat for dinner, a simple plate of Gary and beans. Amara barely touched her food, scrolling through Instagram instead. Her face lit up at a picture of her ex-boss, Chief Williams, standing beside a new Prado SUV. "See what real men do for their wives," she muttered. David swallowed his pride and forced a smile. "He's got more years and money than me. But I've got time and dreams, Amara." She rolled her eyes. "Dreams don't pay rent." That night, David stayed awake, staring at the ceiling fan turning lazily above him. He remembered their wedding day, how Amara had once looked at him with pride, telling everyone, "He's my hero. He'll make it big someday." Now that faith had vanished. Still, he couldn't hate her. He believed love was built on patience. At dawn, David packed his toolbox and kissed her forehead. "I'll fix the car today. Maybe we can go out this weekend, eh?" She nodded absent-mindedly, her attention still on her phone. Hours later at work, his best friend Tund patted his shoulder. "Bro, you still love that woman too much. She no day appreciate you." David smiled weakly. "Maybe she will, someday." When he got home that night, Amara greeted him with surprising warmth. "We got invited to Chica's wedding tomorrow. Let's go together." David's heart lifted. Finally, something good. He never knew that the next day's drive would change everything, forever. The rain came suddenly, drumming hard against the car roof like impatient fingers. The wipers swiped uselessly as David squinted through the windshield, guiding their old Toyota along the slick road that led back from Chica's wedding. Beside him, Amara sat in silence, scrolling through her phone again. Her makeup had faded and she looked exhausted, but her eyes brightened when a message popped up. David didn't look, he didn't want to start another argument. "Babe," he said softly, "you had fun today?" She shrugged. "It was okay. Chica's husband is doing well. Did you see their new house?" David chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. "We'll get there too, Amara. You'll see. Maybe next year we'll have our own car that doesn't cough before starting." She didn't laugh. She simply sighed, looking out at the rain-soaked highway. The clock on the dashboard flickered. 9:47 p.m. The road was almost empty, except for the occasional truck rumbling past. David tightened his grip on the steering wheel. The brakes had been acting funny all week, but he hadn't had time to fix them properly. As they approached a bend, a pair of headlights appeared suddenly ahead, a truck swerving into their lane. "David!" Amara screamed. Instinct kicked in. David slammed his foot on the brake. Nothing. The pedal sank to the floor. The car kept sliding, tires screaming against the wet asphalt. "Hold on!" he shouted, twisting the wheel sharply to the right. The car spun. Time slowed. The headlights of the oncoming truck flashed through the window like a camera's glare. David's arm shot out across Amara's chest to shield her as metal collided with metal in a deafening crash. Glass shattered. The world tilted. Then silence. Rain poured through the broken windshield, tapping softly against his bloodied hands. He tried to move, but his legs felt like dead weight. Pain screamed up his spine. "Amara! Amara!" She groaned faintly beside him. Her forehead was bleeding, but she could move. Her door had popped open during the impact. She stumbled out, gasping for air, crying. People ran toward them from nearby roadside shops. Someone shouted, "Call ambulance! Quick!" David looked down. His legs were twisted unnaturally beneath the dashboard. He could barely breathe. Amara crouched beside him, tears mixing with the rain. "David, don't move. Please don't move." He smiled weakly, his voice trembling. You're safe, that's what matters. Sirens wailed in the distance. When they reached the hospital, the doctors rushed him into emergency surgery. Amara paced the hallway, soaked and trembling. Hours passed before a nurse came out. The surgery was successful, she said, but he won't be able to walk again for a while. Maybe permanently. Amara's heart stopped. The nurse's voice faded into background noise. She looked through the glass window at David, pale, motionless, tubes running from his body, and for the first time fear wasn't about losing him. It was about losing the life she thought she deserved. That was the night everything changed, not just David's body, but the woman he thought he knew. The smell of antiseptic filled the hospital room, blending with the steady beep-beep of the heart monitor. David lay on the bed, motionless from the waist down, staring at the ceiling as morning light filtered through the blinds. His hands twitched now and then, the only reminder that he was still alive. Beside the bed, Amara scrolled through her phone again. Her eyes were distant, her expression blank. Amara, David's voice came weak and shaky. You should go home and rest. You've been here all night. She forced a smile. I'm fine. But she wasn't. Days turned into weeks. Physiotherapy began, and with each failed attempt to stand, David felt a part of himself die. The man who once fixed engines now couldn't move his legs. He tried to hide his tears, but Amara saw the pain, and instead of sympathy she felt irritation. One evening she entered the ward with a small nylon bag of food. David, I brought rice. He smiled. Thank you. You didn't have to. I didn't cook it, she interrupted. My friend gave me some extra. Her tone was flat. David's hands froze. Amara, are you okay? She turned to him suddenly, her voice trembling with frustration. No, I'm not okay. Look at you, David. Look at us. We can't even afford this hospital bill anymore. My life has stopped. His heart cracked. I didn't ask for this, Amara. I saved your life. I never asked you to, she snapped and then instantly regretted it. But the words were out. The room went silent. Only the monitor beeped steadily between them. That night she left early. She didn't come back for 2 days. When she did, her perfume smelled different, expensive. Her nails were freshly done. Where have you been? David asked softly. Trying to fix our lives, she replied, avoiding his eyes. Chief Williams has been helping with the bills. David frowned. Your former boss? Yes, she said quickly. He offered support. Don't start. Weeks later, David was discharged. The hospital bed was replaced with a small mattress in their apartment. His wheelchair sat beside him like a silent reminder of what he'd lost. Amara started leaving home early, returning late. Calls went unanswered. One afternoon, Tund visited with food. Bro, how you day? David smiled faintly. Alive, I guess. When Tund left, David noticed an envelope on the table. Inside were divorce papers. No explanation, no goodbye, just a signature. A note was attached. I can't live like this. I'm sorry. You'll always have my prayers. Tears blurred his vision. His hands trembled as he dropped the paper. That night, while rain whispered against the window, the same kind of rain from the accident, David whispered to himself, so this is love? To save someone and still lose them. He didn't sleep. He only stared at the ceiling, waiting for a reason to keep breathing. The apartment had grown silent. Cobwebs stretched across the corners, the smell of dust and forgotten food thick in the air. David sat by the window in his wheelchair, staring at the street where children chased a ball and mothers laughed. The sound cut deep, a life moving on without him. Bills piled up on the table. His old workshop had called last week to say they'd replaced him. Pity only lasts so long, the manager had said apologetically. Every night, he replayed the crash in his head, the blinding lights, the spin, Amara's scream. Sometimes in his dreams he walked again, only to wake up to the cruel stillness of his legs. One afternoon, Mrs. Alayemi, his mother, arrived carrying food. She sat beside him and held his hand. Son, she whispered, don't let this pain bury you. The world took your legs, not your purpose. He smiled weakly. Ma, purpose doesn't pay rent. She didn't argue, she just hugged him. When she left, the room felt heavier than before. Days later, his friend Tun showed up with a visitor, Dr. Kemi Balagan, a neurologist with kind eyes and quiet confidence. She introduced herself gently. Tun told me about your accident. I specialize in spinal rehab. You still have partial sensation, that's something. David almost laughed. Something? I can't even stand. Dr. Kemi smiled. Then we'll start with sitting properly. Her sessions began the next week. They weren't easy. Sweat rolled down his face as she guided his movements, urging him to lift his torso, strengthen his arms, and relearn balance. "You're an engineer," she told him once. "You fix things. Apply that to yourself." Slowly, David started fixing his spirit. One night, unable to sleep, he rolled toward his old laptop. Dust covered the screen. He powered it on and stared at his old designs, mechanical sketches of bikes, gear systems, and engine parts. Then a thought hit him. What if I build something for people like me? By morning, his table was cluttered with sketches, plans for a smart wheelchair, controlled by voice and touch sensors. Tund visited the next day and found him working. "Guy, you day smile again. Oh, what'n happen?" David turned the paper around. "I'm building a new kind of leg, Tund, one I'll never lose." For the first time since the accident, laughter filled the room. Not from denial but from hope. Months passed. With Dr. Kemi's encouragement and an innovation grant for disabled inventors, David began testing his prototype. Every failure hurt, but every small success rebuilt his faith. By the end of the year, he could stand briefly, aided by his own creation. And when he looked in the mirror, he didn't see a broken man anymore. He saw a survivor ready for something greater. 2 years later, the sun glinted off a silver logo etched on glass: Phoenix Mobility Technologies. Inside the sleek new office in Lagos, David Okoro moved gracefully on an exoskeletal frame, the very invention that had turned his tragedy into triumph. The office buzzed with life. Engineers tested prototypes, journalists waited for interviews, and investors filled the conference room. David watched it all with quiet pride. Every screw, every line of code, every sleepless night had built this moment. "Sir," said Tund, now his operations manager, handing him a tablet, "we've just gotten confirmation. The Minister of Innovation will attend your product unveiling next week." David smiled faintly. "Good. Let's make sure everything runs smoothly. No delays." As Tund left, Dr. Kemi walked in with her familiar calm presence. She had stood by him through every setback, every therapy session, every moment of doubt. "You're walking taller these days," she said warmly. David chuckled. "It's the exoskeleton. Or maybe the company I keep." Her smile deepened. "Either way, you've earned this." But as David prepared for the event, the ghosts of his past still lingered. One evening, while scrolling through his phone, a headline caught his eye. "Chief Williams' Empire Crumbles Amidst Fraud Investigation." The image beneath the headline made his hand freeze. Amara, dressed in black, stepping out of the chief's mansion. Her eyes looked empty, her once radiant face hollowed by stress. Tund noticed him staring. "You've seen it too?" David nodded slowly. "Yeah, life has its way of balancing things." Days later, as the grand unveiling approached, invitations went viral. Every major network wanted a piece of the miracle engineer who turned paralysis into power. The event took place at the Eco Convention Center, the hall glittering with lights and press cameras. David stood backstage, taking deep breaths. He remembered the night of the accident, the rain, the pain, the betrayal, and how it all led him here. When he walked out onto the stage, the crowd erupted. The sound was thunderous, but David only smiled humbly. 2 years ago, he began, "I thought my life had ended. I was wrong. It had only begun." Phoenix Mobility isn't just a company, it's proof that broken things can rise again. Applause roared. As he demonstrated his exoskeleton, the audience gasped in awe as he took confident steps across the stage. But amid the clapping, David's eyes caught a figure at the back of the hall, Amara. She stood frozen, tears glistening in her eyes as she saw him walk, not in a dream, not in a memory, but in real life. Chief Williams' fall had stripped her of wealth and security. Now she was just a woman facing the man she'd left behind. Their eyes met for the first time in years. David's expression was calm, not angry, not bitter, just finished. The true comeback had begun. The after-party of the Phoenix Mobility launch shimmered with soft jazz and laughter. Cameramen hovered near the entrance, journalists rushed for interviews, and the hall radiated victory. But amidst the celebration, David Okoro stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, sipping juice and taking in the night. He had made it. From a hospital bed and heartbreak to walking on his own 2 feet, powered by his invention. Still, he felt something unfinished. "David," said Dr. Kemi, approaching him with a proud smile, "you did it. You've given hope to thousands." David smiled softly. "We did it." Before he could say more, the crowd at the entrance stirred. Heads turned. A woman in a simple, elegant gown walked in hesitantly. It was Amara. For a moment, time froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even Tun stopped typing on his phone. Amara's once glamorous aura was gone, replaced with humility and guilt. Her makeup was faint, her hair tied back neatly. She clutched her purse nervously as she approached him. "David," she began, her voice trembling. "You look incredible." He turned to face her fully. His exoskeleton hummed quietly, supporting each graceful step he took toward her. "Thank you, Amara. You look different." Her eyes glistened. "I came to say I'm sorry. I know it's too late, but I needed you to hear it from me. I was scared. When you got hurt, I couldn't handle it. I didn't know how to stay." David studied her face, the same face that once represented everything he dreamed of. Now he only felt a quiet detachment. "You didn't have to stay, Amara. You chose what you thought would make you happy." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "But I was wrong. Chief Williams, he's under arrest. Everything's gone. The house, the cars, all of it. I lost everything." David's gaze softened but didn't pity her. "You didn't lose everything," he said gently. "You just lost what was never yours to keep." She stepped closer. "David, maybe we could start over. I see now how wrong I was. You're a better man than anyone I've ever known." The room had gone silent again. Reporters subtly lifted their cameras. David looked at her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Amara, I forgave you long ago, not for you but for me. You were part of my past, but I'm finally living my future." He turned slightly, motioning to Dr. Kemi, who had been standing nearby. She walked over and slipped her hand gently into his. Amara's lips parted, but no words came. Her eyes darted between them, realization setting in. David took a deep breath, looked at her one last time and said quietly, "You left me when I was broken. But that broken man built the strength you'll never understand." Then, without another glance, he and Kemi walked away through the flashing cameras, hand in hand, steady and proud. Amara stood frozen, surrounded by the echoes of applause meant for the man she abandoned. Outside, as David stepped into his car, the night breeze carried a whisper of peace. For the first time in years he smiled freely, not in victory but in freedom. He had risen just like a phoenix. Subscribe, like, comment and share for more interesting stories.